And with no further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, David Fetterman, who is the president and CEO of Fetterman Associates, an international evaluation consultation firm. He has served as Director of Evaluation, Division of Evaluation in the School of Medicine at Stanford University, and is a consulting professor of education and the director of the MA Policy Analysis and Evaluation program in Stanford School of Education. He was formerly professor and research director at the California Institute of Integral Studies, principal research scientist at the American Institutes for Research, and senior associate and project director at RMC Research Corporation. He received his PhD from Stanford University in educational and medical anthropology. David's most recent publication is Empowerment Evaluation in the Digital Villages, Hewlett-Packard's $15 million Race Towards Social Justice. David Fetterman.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here at the end of the day. I am impressed. Well, I guess I'm here to try to blow your minds a little bit. I will. I'll just tell you, empowerment evaluation is just normal evaluation. A lot of what you've heard today, except for one just tiny little thing. It's turned on its head. You're in charge. I'm just a coach and a critical friend. That's what I'm talking about today. How about that to let you know what I want to say right from the bat, just like the other speakers. So let me just walk you through a little bit about what that means. I'm going to give you a number of case examples, including our work in the School of Medicine and this $15 million project by Hewlett-Packard, where we help bridge the digital divide in communities of color using evaluation as part of the driving engine of the process. So let me go over what this is about. I work in squatter settlements in South Africa, as well as my work here in the United States. We're a very international group. And where you might think it's impossible to do anything, where you have 20,000 people in one settlement alone. We don't even know how many settlements there are in South Africa. No water, no electricity, nothing. And you know what you see right next door in the squatter settlement? A child's daycare. There's hope. All this process begins with a desire for a better life. And that's for all of us, too, to improve our work, not just in squatter settlements, but right here in libraries in the United States. But the point is, it always has to start with some sort of hope or desire to move forward. The crew for empowerment work is international. We work in Brazil, Japan, New Zealand, Spain, United Kingdom. In UNICEF, we work on vaccinations. So we work in all sorts of different areas. It could be health, education, you name it. The 4 projects I want to highlight, because we don't have a lot of time today, and this goes till 7 o'clock at night, right? Did I get something wrong there? Maybe I'll make it a little shorter, don't worry. I'll abbreviate the projects, don't worry. But I want to just tell you about an example in Arkansas, in the Delta. I want to tell you about the $15 million project, mostly focused on Native Americans, 18 different tribes in San Diego. Our work in the School of Medicine at Stanford, where I was the director of evaluation. And also I do a lot of work in Arkansas on tobacco prevention, keeping minority kids away from tobacco. What the heck is this thing? Well, I want to briefly just go over what the definition is, theory, concepts, and steps, very quickly. First, the definition. It's the use of evaluation concepts, techniques, and findings to foster improvement and self-determination. You might notice it's a little different than your normal form of evaluation, which is just a neutral, objective assessment. No, this is to help you get where you want to go, being honest and straightforward, but to move you towards your goals. Let me expand the definition a slight bit more. It's an approach that aims to increase the probability, because there are no guarantees in life, of achieving program success by providing program stakeholders with tools for assessing the planning, implementation, and self-evaluation of their program. And this is critical. And mainstreaming evaluation as part of the planning and management of the program. No longer is it parasitic, secondary, you don't have funds for it. It's what you do. It's part of your normal day-to-day management. It becomes just part of moving forward. To be intellectually honest, I didn't do this tree, so don't blame me if you don't like this tree. Not the prettiest one. Mara Valkin uses this in his book. He's taken the top theorists in evaluation, and he's placed them on a tree. I'm on this limb ready to fall off at any time, very I know where I am. I don't mind. I'm just happy to be on the tree, you know? But to be intellectually honest, I'd like to let you know where I am. I've written a number of books, and those have seen my books on ethnography and qualitative methods, et cetera. See, I've written a lot of work over here in methods, but they were correct, I told them. In all honesty, my heart is over here. This one's called use. What are you going to do with this stuff once you've collected it, once you've analyzed it? So even though I've written a tremendous amount about methods, and I do consider myself, well, I'll tell you one quick joke, as long as I'm here. What the heck, you know, we got time, right? This is a true story. It's just an aside, a methodological, cute joke. I was at a little party with the family, right? And my Aunt Mary, she's wonderful, but she's, I don't know, a little flaky sometimes, you know, not always so super focused. And she says, you know, so what is it that you do, right? So I try to explain. At the time, I was very heavily in that middle category. So I explained, I'm a methodologist. So she says, so you don't celebrate Hanukkah anymore? So from that point on, I explained, yes, I'm still Jewish. I still celebrate Hanukkah. And luckily now I'm an empowerment evaluator, so I don't even have to think about explaining that one. Anyway, it's a true story. But anyway, so I used to think of myself methodologically in that category, and I moved over the years to in this category. As you'll see why as I got more immersed in empowerment evaluation, why it's important. But just to be honest, I showed where these things are. Briefly, and this is broad strokes and fast, if you were to contrast traditional forms of evaluation with empowerment, you have the traditional person come in from the external versus you're on the internal side with empowerment evaluation. You're the outside expert with the traditional evaluation. You're a coach or critical friend in empowerment evaluation where I believe in what you're doing, but I'm going to be harsher because I want it to work. I'm going to be even more critical. In traditional evaluation, we, as you know, collect surveys, we analyze, we sort them through, we analyze, we then get them out there. It may take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it takes, depending on the size sample. To us, this is what we do. This is normal. To users, this is warehousing data because they're making decisions, and time is going by, so that eventually it's ignored. In empowerment evaluation, you use it on a routine basis to inform your decision making. Look, I am very proud. I've won awards in evaluation. I'm not going to denigrate them in any way, but I'm not stupid, okay? I know they had an impact for, a nanosecond or two. In empowerment evaluation, you're leaving the capacity for people to learn how to do evaluation on a basic level behind. And that's, as we all get a little bit older, want to do, right? We want to leave something behind rather than just go in there and make a show and you're gone. In traditional forms of evaluation, they're wonderful, but they tend to foster dependency. In empowerment evaluation, you are building self-determination and building capacity. It's wonderful to have independent judgment. Can't beat it for external. The problem is it's typically done by extremely bright people, Deloitte, Touche, all those folks, very bright, but at the wrong level of the organizational development. You may be here, and they're assessing you as if you were a full, mature program that's been around for 10 years, or 50 years, or 100 years. It's a new program that you're doing in special collections or what have you. You don't assess it at the same level. And that's what can kill it. If you have the independent assessment, which is good, but at the right organizational level of your development, then it makes sense. Vice versa, by the way. If it's been around for 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you do deserve to be assessed at that level, not at an embryonic beginning level. But the point is it's rarely done that way. It's done without any sense of that organizational level of development. And that's what can kill it. It can divert resources away from a place that's just beginning and needs more time. In empowerment evaluation, you're talking about a collaboration, never an independent assessment only. However, I'll talk about that in a second, that did not, as you'll see second, that we denigrate them in any way, independent judgment, you'll see. In traditional forms, though, you go in, it really goes beyond that initial assessment of that program. In empowerment evaluation, it goes on forever. There is no end to that process. Having said all that in broad strokes and fast, they're not mutually exclusive. I get external groups all the time to come take a look at my programs when we're doing an empowerment evaluation, but I want to make sure that they're looking at it from our concerns, our primary perspective, and our organizational level of development. Now, I did say I had to 7. I did have, because I'm going to go theory now. So I'm going to go till 7 o'clock. I'm going to force you. You kind of shut the doors? No, I'm going to do no more than 3 theories in 3 minutes. Okay, this is like, hey, I've done the Ignite lecture, so I can do this. And remember, I'm from Connecticut originally. I've only been here 20 some odd years, right? So this is slow. I've slowed down, okay? So first theory guiding empowerment evaluation is called process use. All that it is that the more that people engage in conducting their own evaluation, the more likely they are to buy into the results and the findings. Why? They're theirs. Versus, I come in, I give an assessment, well, maybe he knows what he's talking, maybe he doesn't, but he's going to be gone, see you later. Very different, however, if you're assessing yourself and your own performance. You've had a lot of years of experience. You're going to go with some collaborative view, some normative view of sort of where you think you are. And by the way, they're going to look at me very differently. Instead of running away from me as the evaluator, oh my God, he's going to come assess me, great, can I be absent, can I be sick that day? You assess yourself. You come to me, can I help you? The dynamic changes. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Very powerful. That's theory number one. And it improves the most important thing in evaluation, that is the biggest problem in evaluation, knowledge utilization. Most evaluation reports sit and gather dust. Okay? This transforms that. This makes a major contribution towards people using it because it's theirs. There's a sense of ownership. So it improves knowledge utilization. Okay, a couple more theories. I promise, I'm still under the 3-minute level, don't worry. How many have been to England? How many know that symbol? Okay, almost everybody, not quite. First time I saw this, I was giving a talk in a workshop in London. I didn't know what it was, right? And I didn't really care. I was just, tunnel vision. I was just focused. You'll see how tunnel vision I am. And I hear, mind the gap, like this across the, I'm thinking, what the heck? Is this Gap jeans or what's going on? So, I'm looking down, I don't see anything. I hop on the tube, I get there, I do the workshop, we do some talking, we get working on some projects. My mind's like buzzing around all the other things we have to do, publications, and I get back, I'm just getting ready to get off the tube so I can go back to the hotel. Mind the gap! Again, this time 1.5 feet. I could have killed myself, right? This is like serious. And I knew what that was. That's empowerment evaluation. See what I mean? Tunnel vision. I knew exactly what that was. It had nothing to do with protecting me. Watch. In life, there's the theory of action. Okay, that's what we espouse. That's what we say, oh, we want perfect equity, we want everything to be mom pie, apple pie. Organizations want to be perfect. Then we have this other thing called the theory of use. And that's the observed behavior. And you may have noticed in life, they don't always go together, right? Organization says, oh, we're about this and fairness, and we're going to treat you right. No ageism, sexism, blah, 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 right? And then there's this other thing called discrimination, and, these are getting in the way. Just, don't drive, That's what that's for. Empowerment evaluation. You're trying with empowerment evaluation to mind the gap between what people say they do and what they actually do, okay? So they can start to walk their talk. That's the whole point. And you're trying to close the gap, not just mind the gap. Pretty good, huh? 3 minutes. I told you I could do it. You just saved yourself. You could have been here till 7. No problem. Let's move on to concepts. Just key concepts. These are to keep in the back of your mind. And you've heard some of them when you heard something, the session earlier on action research, but this is evaluation, not research, and it's collaborative group rather than individual, but as a very good start for those who were listening to that session before. In this case, you begin with evidence. You have to have a critical friend, just like in action research, and that's someone who believes in what you're doing, but they're critical. They're going to let you know, what do you mean by that? Culture of evidence. I'm going to always ask you, and you'll see in a minute, when you rate something, I'm going to say, why did you give it a 3? Why did you give it a 6? I want to know. I want to see what your evidence. You have it, but we haven't been teaching people to make it explicit and systematic. In the process, you have what's called cycles of reflection and action, where you reflect on the data, analysis, but then you act on it. It's not enough. And then you reflect on that. So it's cycles of that process. In the process, you build a community of learners. None of us know everything, including me. We're all learning together as we're going into each century. And in the process, ideally becoming reflective practitioners about your own individual performance as well, even though my focus is on the group. These are just things I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we're going through some of these key examples. I've been critiqued before when I've said that we have to have a critical friend or a coach by some colleagues. And they said, David, you don't have a coach in life. Why would you have to have one in evaluation? Doesn't make any sense. Life doesn't work. So I went home, I thought about that. I said, that is nonsense. Look, I'm going back to the gym these days, okay? My biggest exercise was running from the parking lot to my classroom. That's probably not enough. So I'm going back, but I'm not stupid. I got a coach. I don't want to kill my back. I don't want to do something stupid. My daughter, you think I'm going to let her, this is some years ago, do this without a coach? I don't think so. That's her. Or be volleyball? I don't think so. And I coach in different projects, and we have coaches for racing. Of course, we have coaches called a financial advisor. Of course, we have them in all of our life. So why wouldn't we have one in evaluation too? I don't want to belabor the point. It's just that having had the critique and had to think about it, I just want to make that really explicit. There's nothing wrong with having a coach as you're doing your own assessments. And there's someone who believes, as I said, in the type of program, but still asks the critical questions to ensure an honest and constructive critique of self-assessment. By the way, this is across grantees that I work with as well, not just individual ones. They take, you're taking charge of your own evaluation, once again with the assistance of an empowerment evaluator. This is one of my empowerment evaluators that works for me, and this is a group working in keeping minority kids away from tobacco. They're churches, NGOs, hospitals, all working together throughout the state of Arkansas. So I fly back and forth for that project. This is my other empowerment evaluator working in the same project. It's a pretty good group across the state, so it keeps us busy. Now, my mom was a professor. I'm a professor. She's 86 years old. I talk to her every day, see how she's doing. She's going to ask me, did you ask them how many steps there are to empowerment evaluation? And I'm going to say, you think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding? I'm going to say, they're adults. She goes, did you ask them? How many steps are there? Just, Mom, are you happy? I'll call her tomorrow. I'll let her know. You think I'm kidding? My mom's 86. She's still writing and winning proposals. I'm not kidding you. She's not the same normal kind of mom. Most moms, they send a letter back. How you doing? You eating enough? She sends me a letter, says, or an email. Sorry. She attaches pictures to it. Says, how's the budget look, David? Is this okay, for that proposal? None of this how you doing kind of stuff. She's definitely a go-getter. But she'll be happy. I've asked. You've got it right. All there is to this process, and you can do it a number of different ways. You can do it 3-step, 10-step. You can do Foxtrot. It's like whatever you want. I happen to use this approach because it's simple. It's become worldwide since I introduced it when I was the president of the American Evaluation Association some 18 or 19 years ago now. And it was an N of 1. And now it's over 18 or 19% of the association is doing this kind of work. So it's really caught on. You'll see why. It's simple. It's transparent. It works. You help people come up with a mission of what they're talking about, what they're trying to focus on. You help them take stock of where they are. And you help them plan for the future. In most evaluations, you simply take stock and you're done. In empowerment evaluation, you have to move forward, and also, what do you want to do with that? And then you monitor and assess that. And that's how it becomes a cyclical, endless kind of process. Let me show you a little bit more. Is that pretty clear? So I'm done? Okay. Oh, tiny bit more, as long as I'm here. Just a minute. For the mission, very briefly, it's democratic, it's open. You have a poster paper here, and I jot down key terms that you've mentioned about what the mission is. It's very much of a way of focusing on group values. And you can honor the existing mission if you want, or go with a new one. But if you have an existing one, you should have a sub-mission with the energy in the room that you have, because that's going to be your driving force. Many of you probably, from talking to you today, already know what this last one is, but maybe haven't all seen the same terminology, giving voice and making meaning. But from my conversations with most of you, you already know what this is. Have you ever gone to a meeting, and it's got, and I'm not talking about the copy catalogs, folks, I'm talking about with the whole organization. You make some interesting point. You're brave enough to actually say it in front of everybody, right? I say you're from technical services in particular. That's what I've spent a lot of time with at Stanford. And everyone ignores you. Or they slightly insult you. Or my favorite, I'm not going to say who this was at Stanford Library, having done that evaluation. Someone with a lot more stature comes in and says the exact same thing. Everyone goes, oh, good point, good point. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I'm not saying it happens at your library too, but that's not being allowed to give voice or make meaning. Empowerment evaluation compels you to be heard. It changes the whole dynamic, as you'll see in a moment, whether you want to or not. For taking stock, you have two parts. I ask people to start listing all the key activities that are associated with accomplishing that mission. And it could be endless. In this case, it happened to be one that I was working with through an accreditation process at an institute right around in the city over here. And it could be communication, product development, fundraising. And I know very California-esque, but we're in California. And hey, we're over here in Berkeley. This is perfect. Everybody gets 5 dots, okay? I say this in Midwest, and they go, okay, but it saves a lot of time. Everybody gets 5 dots. You can put 1 dot there, 2 dots there. If you don't think anyone's going to go for communication, put all 5 in there. I don't care. And everyone always says to me, and my colleagues go, Dave, that's not very quantitative. I go, count the dots? I mean, I went to Stanford, I learned something. It's like, you pick whatever has the most dots. And the top 10 are the ones that then go into your list in an Excel spreadsheet you're going to rate. I mean, I don't know. I know I missed something there, but bottom line, you take the ones with the top. It's just a prioritization process. It's just, trust me, if you don't use this dot process back here, you'll spend, I've made all the mistakes, by the way, and I'll tell you, if we have time, I'll tell you all the mistakes I've made through life. I've got tons of them. But, you know, when I didn't do this, you could spend 4 hours arguing why yours is the third, why yours is the second. Who cares? You're picking the top 10 anyway. So, you know what I mean? So, dots, it's really 2 minutes. It saves you so much time. And you count them, you know. I don't know, makes sense to me, but, you know. So then you put them in an Excel spreadsheet. And it's everything that's against what you normally do in evaluation, right? Nothing confidential. Those are my initials. Those are my colleagues' initials. We don't have confidentiality. I want to know what you're thinking. So let me show you why this works. You put the numbers in, which is 1 to 10. 10, you're doing great. 1, the pit's awful, okay? So this is actually a real abbreviated example from an accreditation of an institute where I was a research professor just across over there. And I put in a 3. Why? Because we're having a session like this, but dealing with accreditation, and there are 2 other meetings scheduled for the same time in the same room. What is going on here? And nobody ever has an agenda. And on top of that, have you ever run into this? I just have to say, because I've been around the world, okay? I mean, many times. I've never heard this in my life. And this is across the bay over there. Anyway, I won't say where. Anyway, just look at my bio. But anyway, have you ever had this? They pick up the phone in the morning around 9:30 and go, and it goes through the whole system to everyone's phone. We're having a meeting in 10 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, what? Well, I'm booked up for like months, and you're telling me I got a meeting in 10 minutes downstairs? And I don't even know what it's about. It's going over the phone system. I never even heard of such a thing. You know, not even email. It's just like, you know, it rings. So this is not good communication. Now, you're starting to hear my evidence, see? Now, as you're hearing my evidence, guess what? You already probably know what my strategies will be to improve things. See? That's why we ask for evidence. Interesting, huh? Fun, but interesting at the same time. So I'm building a culture of evidence so you get used to the idea of having to have evidence for your ratings. But this is the one thing about this very interesting. You'll appreciate this. One of the things I found by going around the world working with so many people, and I don't care if it's townships or here today, we are all, surprisingly, the same. Really. Phenotypically, we may be different, but everyone is the same. Any place I've ever been, every culture I've ever been in, the moment they identify a problem, you're already figuring out what should I do about it to fix it. It's already fixed everywhere. That's what this is. Taking stock is just, oh, we've identified the problem, we're really focusing in. Communication may be pathetic, right? And I'll go on with this example, but they already figured out what you need to do about it. This just gives you the evidence so you can circle in on what to do. Because I could try to solve this a million different ways and they'd all be wrong. They wouldn't be targeted with what concerns the group I'm working with. See how focused this is? Anyway, the secretary gives it a 3 as well. But she says, you're closer to dean level. Would you mind being the one, right? And you're higher up there. And he's too high level. So who gives it a 6? You know, you heard it. 6 is the dean right there. Thank you so much. There goes my longevity, right? Tenure? Anyway. So, okay. Why did you give it a 6? We think it's pathetic. Oh, by the way, she's a better social scientist than I am. She actually has the written record, right, of the meetings and how they overlap. But she's not powerful enough to want to say anything about it. So, okay, so I say, okay, why'd you give it a 6? He says, David, the reason that I gave it a 6 is because from my perspective, we communicate very well compared to the entire institute. Interesting, huh? But you see, if I hadn't had a dialogue, though, it would have just been lost in a survey, right, and just average. We're talking past each other. So we created 2 categories, internal and external, right there. That's fine. Now, so you see how powerful this process is? It's the dialogue that matters more than the numbers, as you can already tell. But watch this. We also total it and average it this way so that the minority opinion of a 1 or 9 is there, in your face. That voice is heard no matter what. But it's not going to distort it totally. You'll have an average here and then an average of the averages. We also, as you may have noticed, average this way. Why? You can see who's a little pessimistic. That's me. How unfortunate. I am an evaluator. What am I going to say? And look at this. Nah, I don't feel so bad. I can always rub that in. Now, why is that important? From an evaluation perspective, it's called norming. The next time I say something positive, everyone goes, "You thought it was positive?" Whoa. See what I mean? You get to learn how the person is coming across from their evaluative core, not religious, cultural, blah, blah, but from their evaluative core. And you get to then norm what we mean when we start going over this time and time again, assessing different parts of our program. And you know what? He's always going to be a little bit on the, yeah, it's fine, everything's okay kind of level. But you know where he's coming from. I'm not asking anyone to change. We're getting to know each other better. And it's called norming in the process. And I usually ask people where they're doing for each of these categories, and then total the average of the averages. Because if you only said, "How you doing?" then yeah, they might say, "Oh, I'm doing great." But if you give people a chance to say where they're doing great, they'll tell you where they're not doing well. Why? Because when life is broken, okay, and one group, let's just say, without getting specific, in the library doesn't want to talk to another group, okay, they want it fixed. Now, I know a lot of librarians will want to keep on festering for a while, but I won't go into, I'm not going to say which group. I'm not talking about acquisitions, so don't, you know. Oh, man, I am in big trouble now. Could have said copy catalog. Anyway, I'm not going to say who has it easy, by the way. Anyway. But the point is, I've written about this, by the way, in my ethnography book on the different cultures that are in libraries, if you want to read about that sometime, and dedicated one of my early books to librarians in my 1986 book, just so you know. Anyway, so my heart's right there, I tell you. I knew early on how important librarians were. Anyway, but the point of this is that it's also illuminative. Because, watch this, with product development, I gave it a 1. That's where you have like brochures that go out to students and to folks out there to learn about the program. And she gave it a 4. She didn't think much of it. And of course, who gives it an 8? But this time, I'm wrong. I say, "What's your evidence?" He says, I do 3 TV spots a month. I do 1,000 brochures a week. He goes on and on and on, just like all of us. He's in an office, 2 offices from me, right? I don't have the slightest clue what he does and what resources he has. So now I know I can tap him for it. So what this means is I can, by the way, change my rating. What a shock. In an evaluation, you can't change your ratings. What are you talking about? No, now that I know and have more evidence and information, of course I can. It's more accurate. So I can change that, but also more important, he now knows that he has not been good at marketing internally. You see what I mean? So this becomes an illuminative process, not just an evaluative one of whether we're doing well or not doing well. Very powerful process. What always comes up in this process is the elephant in the room emerges that we don't want to talk about through this. I'm not saying it's not without conflict. It's just that it's done within bins, within mission, and then you stop taking stock, playing for the future, and you move on. So trust me, I'll go into an example in a minute of conflict, where this can be you think a little out of hand, but I'll get to that in a second. But the point is, you can come up with an average of an average like this. And remember what I said earlier? If I came into here, I've only been here a day, I'll give everybody a 4.25. David, go back to Stanford, go back home, go back to Arkansas, wherever project you're working on, I don't care. You don't know us that well, right? You give it to yourself. You say, "David, how can you help me?" That's the dynamic change in assessment. Powerful. See what I mean? Very powerful process. Mission, taking stock, planning for the future. From that point on, you take, let me go back, one of the things you assessed, not anything, one of the things you just assessed, like communication, fundraising, and from there you go, what do I want to do? It's simple. Communication was one. I want to improve communication. What's your strategy? Guess what? We don't have meetings on top of meetings. We make better scheduling. We have agendas. Where did I get all this from? The evidence from what was wrong. Look, I have come up, when I was in Ethiopia, I came up with this great thing of improving communication by this electronic bulletin board. And I had this fantastic, it was just, eloquent and everything. They don't have electricity every day. So, pathetic. You see me? So it's got to be rooted in people's own understandings, community knowledge of what's going on to be relevant. I got plenty of mistakes I've made. I'll give you more if I have time. Don't worry. I could do a couple books on that one. But you get the idea. And going back to that one just quick, so don't go too fast. They come up with their goals, their strategies, and we together come up with credible evidence, including, by the way, a funder. Take care. Then, this is another book we've written where we want to show people where the guiding principles for empowerment evaluation. I won't go into all of them today, but, oh, sorry, I went too fast. the basic logic of this process in evaluation terms and then the principles. If you take taking stock, it's really the baseline. We're going to come back to it. After we do the plans for the future, that's the intervention, see? Then we're going to take stock again to see if we've made progress, different data points. Then we're going to look at interim measures. If this is where you want to be at the end of the year, we're going to be halfway through. We're going to be a quarter of the way through. So you have benchmarks, interim measures. Why? Because if you're not quite making it, you shouldn't be slapped on the wrist. You should be, oh, you need help. Let's jump in. Or you know you need help, ask. You see what I mean? It changes the dynamic of this process. And then the mid-course corrections can be made. You think any computer company is going to ever produce software and wait till the end of the year? Oh, it didn't work. We just lost our whole investment. No, they're constantly having it revised. We're just the beta group, constantly testing for them, feeding it back to them. No one waits that long. That's going to stay in business. These are the principles I was talking about just a second ago that guide empowerment evaluation, and they include improvement, community ownership, inclusion, democratic participation, social justice, community knowledge, evidence-based strategies, capacity building, organizational learning, accountability, and why is inclusion important? I'll tell you why. You got another minute for a story. What the heck? You know, we're here. Everyone have enough coffee and cookies, okay? I'm seeing, yeah? Okay, let me sneak in one more story. Inclusion is important because when I first introduced the empowerment evaluation to the association and to the field, it didn't exist, okay? It was a whole new concept and way of thinking about it. People couldn't get their heads around it. So I thought, let's do it in a novel, interesting way. So I introduced a very special speaker to help me talk about it. And what I did is I introduced him like this. I said, you know, I could spend all morning discussing just how phenomenal this person is. Double Nobel laureate. I read his work as a kid. I still look at his work now. But I'm not going to spend all morning. I'm going to just let you hear from him. So please, let me introduce Dr. Albert Einstein. Everyone thinks, hasn't he died quite a few years ago? And hasn't David been in California a little too long now? I hired an actor who does this for Motorola. And I trained him for 6 months on this process. He was fantastic. Everyone thought he was brilliant. Of course they thought he was brilliant. Why? He uses Einstein's words interwoven with what I taught him about evaluation and empowerment in particular. So now keep in mind, I don't tell many people this, but listen to this. I was sweating bricks. Why? He said, part of the contract, that he had to be put in a dumbwaiter so that no one would see him, because it's a big surprise. I'm thinking to myself, I'm introducing this guy. What if he gets stuck in the dumbwaiter? I'm going to look like I'm crazy, right? Anyway, that was the least of my problems. He gets up there and he starts talking. You know those remote mics you put on your hip? You know? He has one of those guys, so he can walk, because he's like, you know, I'm standing here for the camera. I see you. I'm not moving. Don't worry. I know what you're not. Normally I'd be moving around too, but, you know, I'm staying still. He's moving around like crazy. He's got the sweater. He's got the hair going all over the place. And the microphone is breaking up, so I can't hear him very well. I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God. That's a great idea. I've done all this trouble, and no one's going to be able to hear what I'm trying to communicate about this process because the thing is broken like that. So what is it, you know? But my dad taught me a lot. I could see where it's cracked along the side, right? And if I only held on to and squished this little piece like this, the batteries would connect, and they did. Pretty impressive, except for one thing. He doesn't stop moving, so I'm moving around behind him like this. It gets worse. I not only have a suit on, I got a cowboy hat on because it's Texas. And I'm such a great, bright guy, I put stars on everyone because I want my board members, everyone to know who the board members are. So I got a star, a sheriff star, my suit, this thing, and I'm going like this, and I'm dancing around. Now I know no one's listening to what he's saying because they're watching this guy, so just dancing behind him, right? Something like, this is great. So if I let go, no one's going to understand what he's going to say, right? And then if I hold on, you trust me, they're not going to remember a thing about what I'm trying to do. And these are like critical colleagues. They're going to kill me because a whole new way of thinking for them. So, thousands of people in the audience, thousands of people, highly critical, right? Who's the one person? There's one person, right? I'll tell you who it is. Who's going to help save us? I'm friends with people from all over the world, okay? This one person in this association, nobody wants to talk to. He's very pariah-like. I like him. I don't know exactly why. He likes to talk computers 24/7, so I understand where people could be a little turned off. But he's a nice guy. I don't know. I came from a small town. I don't really know why. I like him, okay? Who's the one person who comes, finds an old-fashioned microphone with a cord, brings it and saves the day? Him. That's why inclusion is important. Was that too long-winded a way to explain? Wait till I explain 10 of them. No, I'm going to zoom by. Don't worry. I know it's late in the afternoon, but pretty good. It's a real story. Isn't that cute? You never know. I try to emphasize that because it's a real story. And inclusion, look, my belief is diversity is additive. It's not subtractive. We need the diversity. Not for humanitarianism, just so we survive, all of us. Look, even, and you know, it doesn't have to be ethnic and racial diversity. The engineers at Stanford had me come and work with them. And they sat in an auditorium like this, where the mechanical engineers were here, and then the marketing ones were over here, because they wouldn't talk to each other, and you had the third category here. And it's like, when I came to doing the math, every one of them took out a calculator like this, go like this. I'm going, you guys don't think you're the same, but I think I see some similarity here. Anyway, what I want to do in the remaining time we have, just focus a couple things on accountability, because that's a good part of what we're about. We're not about just process. It's a great process, but the bottom line in empowerment evaluation is, did you do it? Simple. So let me go over these quick examples. I'll just breeze right through them. I may take a diversion, but not too much. But I want to mention just these Arkansas academically distressed schools, Hewlett-Packard's $15 million digital divide, the Stanford School of Medicine work that we've done, and the Arkansas tobacco prevention work. This is where I work when I work in distressed schools in Arkansas. Pretty wild, huh? So this is a community where this is downtown. So I mean, I was down in my Stanford office, and I worked in inner city stuff for over 20 years. And someone tells me that the kids are scoring at the 25th percentile. I know what that means. It means dropout. It means leaving, truancy, everything else. And they have 98% attendance. I don't believe it. I've been doing this a long time. So I get my hat on, jump off the plane, get to Little Rock, and I drive down to the Delta, and I see cornfield, soy field, rice field, cornfield, soy field, nothing but field, right? So of course it's high attendance, nothing else to do. Kid's gonna sit in the cornfield? He's gonna sit in the cornfield by himself all day? So you have to, even though you have a reasonable basis for your assumptions, guess what? Sometimes you're wrong. You have to go look at that sort of ethnographic component. We actually do the field work and actually observe. Anyway, so I went down there. We did the same process. We did the assessment initially, and it was not so good, but it was all right, you know. At least it was 5.3 in some cases, 5. Could have been worse on teaching, planning, that sort of thing. And then we came up with an intervention on how to improve and get kids the information or the parents they need about what's going on. And what a shock. After doing that, we did in between, by the way. What's that technical word? I always forget what it's called, in between cheating? Yeah, oh, sorry, they call it technical assistance, that's right. Basically, if a great idea like letting parents know through the net didn't work, you change it. You monitor, you interview them before you have to assess again, and you find it didn't work. The old-fashioned piece of paper in the knapsack, that worked? Great, as a way of informing parents. Socials, that worked? Great. So by the time you do a second assessment, you've done that technical assistance in between, so you're of course going to have a higher rating because you've done mid-course corrections in your process. We brought that system from 59% rating at the 25th percentile to only 38. People were not able to do that in 6 years, and we're not literacy experts, math experts, or anything. We're just evaluators. People say, why don't you just fire everybody? Is anyone, who's here, who's going to raise your hand, would be willing to go down to Little Rock and then through 2.5 hours south of Little Rock, you saw the town, and lived there for 3 years? Anybody? I'm not saying, oh, I got one, okay. And by the way, the pay is about $20,000. But living is not very expensive. You couldn't get people to come down, so you have to work with the folks you've got. So you build capacity with the folks you've got. That's the whole point. We did this with the people that were there. Jumping really quickly to the tribal digital village, one of the villages that we worked with HP was called the Tribal Digital Village, about 18 tribes down there in San Diego. And they ended up building one of the largest wireless systems in the country, unlicensed because of sovereign nation, according to the FCC. And you can see, we use the same process, communication, got training, we got funding, et cetera. The same process of before, which is pre and post, basically. You have your taking stock here, your intervention, and then you're taking stock again to see that you've made increases. We respect the cultural norms. They had the tribal leader do the benedictions, so you respect what's going on. And we dealt with a tremendous amount of conflict of them arguing all the way through, but in bins, and then you move on to the next topic. I'm going to keep on going fast because I know we don't have a lot of time. This picture is worth $15 million, PHP anyway. It's me teaching with my students, video conferencing with Native Americans in San Diego. That's face validity that we're able to bridge the digital divide, build towers, routers, bandwidth, which they sell as well, and communicate, not just outside the reservation. Keep in mind, the Bureau of Indian Affairs fragmented Native Americans, not just by putting them on reservations, but made sure they couldn't communicate on the reservation with each other. Never mind outside. Now they can communicate throughout the reservation, outside the reservation, and to Stanford, one of HP's favorite buddies, of course, Stanford, because they're both from Stanford. So that this was worth a fortune to them for the establishing. So in some cases, you want to have statistical reliability. In some cases, you want to have a picture. There are many kinds of outcomes to demonstrate as evidence what you've accomplished. In the School of Medicine, I won't go into detail, but we were able to get at a 0.04, which is pretty unusual, statistical significance for our work to show that we actually had an impact in transforming the curriculum for accreditation and pass with flying colors. That's just some of our faculty colleagues here. And the article, for those that want to read about it more, is in Academic Medicine, showing you what the role of the coach or critical friend is like in the School of Medicine. Last one, very quickly. I work in Arkansas also, and we have tobacco prevention work. And you've heard this mentioned earlier, and the earlier speakers have noted this, ROI, right? Remember we said before, you wouldn't think we'd be mentioning this so kind of commonplace way, right? I was listening. Return on investment. In this case, more and more, it's the social return on investment. But this one's financial. We were stopping kids from, smoking and somehow getting them to stop, not even start. But Huckabee was going for president at the time, and he was going to steal all of our money and bring it into obesity, which is, important. But, tobacco is still the leading, most preventable disease in the world. And we have a lot of data on what we're doing to try to stop people from smoking, especially kids, and especially minority kids, in any case. But the money was going to be taken away. So we started going, you know what? We better start thinking of an interesting way to survive, which is maybe finally pool our data. Unheard of. It's almost like collaborating with libraries. Oops. What a suggestion, right? Anyway, we've been, everyone's been talking about this for years and years, but we're all realizing, guess what? We got to be doing more of it in a real way. But anyway, I won't go into that right now. With this one, we didn't want to pool our data with because we're still competing against each other. Once again, sound kind of familiar. But we want to pool it with at least the part that says we're trying to get kids to stop smoking. How many kids do you get to stop? So normally you'd have one, but you wouldn't mention it. You'd be embarrassed. It's too small. You'd have 10, you tell me. You'd have 3, you might mention it, you might not. 10, you would mention. This time I want to collect all of them. I don't want to miss anybody. Because alone, women's group looked terrible. Right here, see? And then the Asian group looked not so great over here as well. I must say, St. Edward's over here, they did look pretty impressive, but look at that. They look like a blip. If you translate that into how much money we're saving in excess medical costs for the state, and you put us together, it's over $84 million. Trust me. I've spoken in front of the legislature many years. They don't listen to what you're saying at all. They're blah, 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 talking away. They've already made their decision. This is the first time ever I've had the Black Caucus whip sit by me, and everyone's silent while I'm talking about this. Why? Because it made them look good. They helped get us the tobacco settlement money that we use. ROI. Something to think about when you're thinking about evaluation of your own programs. How do you need to translate that to policy people in your own universities? ROI. This is what I want to make sure we at least come close to ending with. I want to sneak in a couple tech things near the end, don't worry. But I want to just put this in there. When you think about doing some of your own self-assessment, and we've all been talking today, keep it as simple as you can. You don't have to get carried away. And I think you should use something like a dashboard. They're very popular now, and they work. The dashboard that we use in tobacco work is tobacco prevention. Is you have a goal. In this case, we have grantees. Where do you want to go at the end of 5 years? Or where do you want to go by the end of this year? Benchmarks, points along the way. What's your actual performance? I ask grantees to say what they're doing now. And the baseline is just where you started. My dad said if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So come up with a goal. He was right. So come up with a goal, and you have a higher probability of getting there. And it looked like this. Our 1 year we break it into quarters. First quarter, second, third, fourth. And what's nice about this is once you've established that you have, say, smoke-free parks, You got one before you started, it's the same for the whole year then. If your goal is to have 4 smoke-free parks for the year, it's the same for every quarter. So if you've done this and you've done this, and you're guessing that you can probably get 1 done the first quarter, 1 more, 1 more, 1 more, then you know what? All you have to do from that point on, these folks I work with across Arkansas, once they've agreed on baseline, goals, benchmarks, they only have to do this for the entire year. What's your actual performance? See how simple this is? All of us can do this. Just put in how many, you didn't quite make it, then talk to somebody in the group that does that kind of work and effectively, and see if you can borrow some ideas. It didn't work well enough, ask us, ask the supervisor, ask whatever, go outside, we check with CDC. And then you have a higher probability of making it, not quite there, but better. And look at, you're on track, means you're probably going to make your goal. That's all it is. And visually, you can represent it this way. There's your baseline, actual, baseline, actual. Your actual and your benchmark, sorry. And we haven't quite finished the 4th quarter. You can look at it that way if you want. Or you can do it the simple old-fashioned bar chart way. You see, I just took the 0 like that. 0 over here for your actual performance. And then you got a 1 over here. See, you're getting there. Almost, you made it. And then you'll eventually make the goal. So if you want to use bar charts, translate it. Any way works, doesn't matter. This is just if you want to use bar charts like this. That's also kind of cool. So any way you want to do it, visually you can represent it in a million different ways. What's nice about bar charts is everyone knows what they are. And you know what? Folks that you report to, typically they know what they are. Translate it immediately. In the process, you will build capacity. I didn't plan this. Because the data was so terrible, trying to get what teenagers are like that are pregnant, that are smoking, what older folks are that are smoking, what young children are like that smoking, and we had a hard enough time getting any of that data. They came to me and said, David, we need to develop an Arkansas Evaluation Center. They came to me. So we submitted to the House, we got it passed. We submitted to the Senate, got it passed, and the governor signed it. We have one. I'm a co-director. I didn't plan on it. My point is, out of these things emerges agreements, memorandums of agreements, or whatever, understanding that you would not have thought of because you have the synergy of a larger group working together. Can I sneak in a couple tech tools? I got a little bit more, right? I'll sneak them in. We use a lot of tech tools in our work, so I just want to sneak some in because they're so important. And just recently, I became a student again. I enrolled in an infographics and data visualization course that I highly recommend. It's one of those big MOOCs, 5,000 students across the country through Miami. Very impressive. And they do it every so often. It's a lot of work. I was going to just do, you may have already noticed I'm a little compulsive, but you may have come across. I was going to do this and just sort of take the course and get what I could out of it, right? Because I got a million projects. I got too many books I'm still working on. I don't have time, but I do want to learn. I don't want to get, too far behind. Once I started getting into it, I read every piece. I commented and posted on every comment that had something on it. I got 100% on both tests. No, it gets worse. I'm so bad. Then I did 5 instead of 3 projects. And then you don't have to have a certificate, right? You remember that PhD from ages ago from Stanford? I don't need a certificate, right? For $15 more, you get a certificate. Anyway. So do I have the certificate? Yes. I know where I'm weak. Anyway, but let me show you what I did learn a couple of things, so it's really cool. It was worth it. We use online surveys, and a lot of you use online surveys, or how many hands? Online surveys? Okay, yeah, most of you know the benefit, instead of the old traditional way of losing all that postage and time and everything else, and then having to take the data and do something with it. This way it sorts it automatically, et cetera. Digital photography, a lot of folks, anyone use? Smattering. You should use a little bit more. A little more. Okay, that's helpful. More of you should use that because it's a great way of having your report or presentation about what you're doing when you want to advocate for your stuff and you have the data that merit it. Pictures are powerful. Let me go on a couple more things. Anyone use blogs? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, but not bad. 18, 19, 20, 22, not 2, 23. Okay. I saw one go up and go down. It's like, okay. Now, I know, I see this now. Now, you can use these for your projects instead of just you or your family. A lot of people think they have to just be about yourself. I use them for every project I'm on. And then at the end of the year, I can't remember, right, all the stuff. I go back to the blog, and I've got the pictures, and I've got the detail of what we did for each of our project sessions. Anyways, think about that as a way of recording it. We use Google Hangout also over here, and I recorded that as part of our process. Social media, anyone use social media for your library work? I see, see, not library work, I see personal. Okay, personal. Oh, yes. Yeah, why not library? How many of you use it for library? Not bad. Not as many, though. why not transfer? I ask people to use it in their personal life so they're more comfortable using it in professional life because they've made enough mistakes with it. They know how to use it, what can go wrong, and what can go right. Start thinking about ways in which you can communicate more effectively. Look, the Casey Foundation, they go by Twitter with each other all the time. Crazy as it may be, that's how they communicate. So a lot of folks are just doing this as a basic way. Google Hangout, my wife works at Google, guess what? They use Google Hangout all the time to be able to communicate wherever they are, and they could be in a car, it could be in shopping, wherever they are, they're still working. I'm not saying work yourself to death, but anyway. It's called silver handcuffs, but anyway, because gold ones are gone. But anyway, how many folks use Wordle? Okay. Wordle, for those who are not familiar with it, you have a long descriptive piece in there about, something you're describing or some document. You put it in there in that box on the web page, and it looks like this because it just shows the relative frequency. It's basically a string search for data analysis. But it's cool. If you've mentioned a lot, the word's really big, and you can have different colors. It makes a great front for the presentation for your cover of your report. And visually, it's just a nice quick, oh, okay, I think they got the right idea, because this happened to be about subrecipients and minority grants. And if it didn't have those in there, as a visual first cut, I go, oh, something's not quite right. So I mean, just a quick shot. You've already discussed the online survey stuff. I use, like a SurveyMonkey just bought Zoomerang. I use that quite a bit, but you can use Forms, which is free through Google, et cetera. Infographics. I just want to sneak this in because I took the course. What the heck, But we do use it a lot in our tobacco prevention work, as you can see. So you take one picture to get a whole report across. These are little people as they go up into smoke. The classic signal of that nature. All the different kind of chemicals in there. This is a classic infographic. Who is smoking? Look at that, black and white. Young Caucasians are more likely than young African Americans to have ever tried a cigarette, to be current smokers, or to be frequent smokers. Interesting. Males are more likely than females to be current smokers. Male, female, symbol. 12th graders are more likely than 9th graders to have tried smoking. Why am I showing you this? Instead of doing what I did, which is I don't even know why. I didn't know how to use Adobe Illustrator, so I thought I'd learn how to do that so I could do this. What a learning curve. Oh my God. On the web, they've got these things called Visually, as a site, an infogram. They're not as robust or flexible, but they allow you to put the data in and do it for you. It's like, where was I? I love this one. On using infogram, quit by the time that you're 30 and you get the full decade back. 40, get 9 out of 10 years back. Get 6 out of 10 for 50. Smokers lose a full decade of productive, healthy life because the risks are big. The benefits of quitting are also big. So quit early. Quit by the time you're 30 and you gain 10 birthdays or anniversaries back. Get a full decade of your life. That's a 50-page report. No kidding. Reduced to that. That cool? And we work with young folks, so of course, bam, got to have impact. Even if that's only in your report, you're not replacing it, what a powerful impact. Infographics. That's the picture, the data piece. I just did a whole presentation on all this stuff at the American Evaluation Association meetings, so I won't go into all of it now. But that's one shot, like a poster, that contains all of that condensed information. Data visualization, on the other hand, is where you're going to be talking about interactive, making meaning out of that material. You can do that in library sciences, as you'll see in a second, there's no question. This one is an infographic just highlighting all the different chemicals that are carcinogenic in one cigarette. But watch this. This is now moving to data visualization. Data visualization, the data is like a database behind there. Sound familiar with some of the presentations you heard today? You can do the same kind of thing where someone can tap into it and find all sorts of things as to what people are reading, not reading, etc. Online, not online. A lot of the things we mentioned just today, I picked as much as I could to the session for that one as well. You could be doing it in a visual kind of way. So that in this case, this example happens to be what to expect when you quit smoking. Well, that one, click, congratulations, you're smoke-free. But if you're a smoker, you want to know what happens at 72 hours later. And it's very honest. You click on the 72 one, you're making meaning. It doesn't tell you automatically, you're making the meaning. You're clicking on 72. I might click on 10 years after. They picked 72 hours, breathing becomes easier, cravings peak, some may experience flu-like symptoms, dizziness, sickness, insomnia, restlessness, or appetite change. And each one's different. You see how this applies to the work we just heard today for the library stuff, information? You were right. When everyone said that it depends on the audience you have, that's the point. You could have data visualization situations where they're very pictorially interesting, but massive data behind there where someone can then play around with these things and come up with something very easily for the information that they want. Just something to think about. I mean, I was listening very carefully today, and I really think it applies, both the infographic and the data visualization, to everything that we talked about as part of evaluation and reporting findings and letting people make meaning out of the data and create their own reports. Everything I've said today is on our webpage, Collaborative Participatory and Empowerment Evaluation. I'm the head of the division for the association. 99% of it's free. We don't get anything out of it. We just go through literally thousands and thousands of web pages a month to see what's useful, not useful, and get rid of the old stuff and put in the most relevant things for people to look at. It's got blogs, books, controversies, guides, tech tools, videos, you name it. Selected references, because I know everyone wants the references. Please make sure they're in your library. These are just some of the highlights that we had over recently. Oh, that's a nice book. Oh, is that mine? This is a good book. This is for like our level, if you want to know about the principles guiding it that I didn't have time to go into detail about. This is an older book, good to have in the library, not necessarily the most important one to read at the moment, that has the foundations of empowerment evaluation. This is the book that helped launch the entire approach some 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago that we're revising, so the new version should be out by next year. And that will be knowledge and tools for self-assessment, evaluation capacity building, and accountability. We want to emphasize that component now. And then, of course, as you've noticed, luckily this book's upstairs. I didn't know where it was to look at. And this is the one where it's bridging the digital divide in communities of color. And I've written, I think it's over 14 books and hundreds of articles, stuff like that. This is the first time that I can ever recall getting radio interviews. I'm getting radio interviews. Just these 10 little minute spot things, you know, what people do, commuter work things, you know, between 9 and 12. But from Houston, from New Hampshire, from all over the country, for this. You tell me why, and I'll replicate it. I have no idea what the hit was. I'm still trying to figure out, is it Digital Village or Empowerment or the money or Hewlett-Packard, social justice? I have no clue, but this thing's like, huh? I'll do Wordle and I'll see what comes up on it. I don't want to question too much because it's been a good ride, but the other ones are more, it's just an academic book, you know? Anyway, you get the idea. Oh, I wasn't kidding, see? I use evidence always. These are some of the radio spots. It's amazing. Anyway, I just want to thank you for hanging in there for the whole day and listening to this. Thanks so much.
Dr. Fetterman, thank you very much. I believe, given the time, we are going directly to the reception now, which is upstairs, and you also have the opportunity to purchase Dr. Fetterman's book. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for attending the LAUC-B conference today. We hope you all found it informative and valuable, and do not forget to turn in your evaluation and return your badge holder. Thank you very much for attending today.